Welcome back to the Crohn's Corner podcast, where shit sucks and I hate my guts. I am Dom D'Agostino, aka the Crohn's father. I am with Cory Evans and Jordan Young, and this is part 2 of episode 3, where we pick up the conversation on inflammation, diet, and other fun stuff. Thanks for tuning in.
I found out about this company through a friend. I'm hesitant to say the company's name because they have not agreed to partner with me yet.
Well, maybe if they hear this podcast.
But this company, there's others out there, but this company stuck out to me because someone actually shared. It's actually one of my produce customers who signed up for the produce box. I deliver them bi-weekly produce, and they're trying to eat better and essentially reduce inflammation in their own body. They don't have Crohn's, but any type of inflammation in the gut
is bad,
and it's going to cause that uncomfortable feeling, diarrhea, whatever it may be, digestive issues. But this company is called Viome, and Viome is a company where you can actually test the bacteria in your gut, and they call that your gut microbiome, which is essentially all the little bacteria that are in your gut, which we need. Right? We have good and we have bad bacteria. We need those good bacteria, which we may hear as flora. We need those in our gut to actually help us break down and digest things. So it actually, we've heard of probiotics before,
sure.
Right?
All my doctors mention that or
there
recommend
you go.
it.
And probiotics is one of those things, and we hear it, right? But what does that mean? What is this is a good bacteria, and the benefit of the gut is having good bacteria that will help us kind of break down the things we don't want there and essentially allow us to absorb more nutrients, which is the job of the small intestine, right?
So would you recommend everybody take a probiotic?
If to a level, yes, you can't really say taking probiotics is going to be bad for you, right?
Sure.
It wouldn't.
So it won't hurt you, but results may vary if you take it, whether it's going to help you or not. Or
yeah, and it'll basically help your gut.
Okay.
So a lot of our immune system is actually in our gut, okay, which is interesting because of Crohn's, because Crohn's is basically mediated by the immune response. So, we have to look at inflammation, we have to look at the cause of it, and when we're talking about food, what do we put in our body that's going to result in inflammation? Mm-hmm. Again, that may differ from person to person, right? So my friend who shared her results with me, which is, very personal, right? She said, I got my gut microbiome tested, here's my results, right? So I'm sitting there reading a chart of things that inflame her gut. And they'll test for various foods.
Why would a GI doctor not do this automatically? Why would a GI doctor not recommend this? Is it because it's privatized? Is it because money? Is it? I mean, why would?
Yeah.
Why have I, as a Crohn's patient for 13 years, why have I never heard of this test? Why have I not taken this test?
Yeah. A great question, and again, I heard about this kind of through a friend as someone who's done scientific research and teaches. I didn't even know about this, right? So I'm like hitting myself, saying, why didn't I know about this? Why was I unaware?
I've heard of these tests where you go to like a holistic doctor, mm-hmm. and they take a bunch of blood samples, or you eat a bunch of foods or something, and you get blood work done, and then they say, okay, this is good for you, this isn't good for you. So I've heard of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But this is like a whole new, this is very eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like something I need to do ASAP.
Yeah, and this focuses strictly on the gut. So It says, okay, if I put this food in my body, what's the response it's going to cause? So they'll take those molecules that are in those foods, and that's what they're testing. So we found out that she was actually inflammatory. She was having an inflammatory response against green beans. Right? So she's been eating green beans her whole life, and it was green beans that were inflaming her gut. Right? So I think we can all probably give some type of anecdotal experience where we said, okay, I ate this and it upset my stomach, right? But what? And there's really no way to know unless you get that specific test done, because we are all genetically, not identical. We're unique. So getting that test done and using Viome, 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 is a great way to get started. Even if
and
you
is that,
don't have Crohn's.
is that a local company, or is that just something local that you heard and got sent out to like a lab, like these ancestry tests? Is it?
Yeah, so again, I heard about this through a friend, third party. And if you look Viome up, I believe they're a US based company. They will send you a kit, and I believe they test your stool samples, which is, can get kind of messy, as you can imagine, right? But that's where your gut microbiome is going to be tested by
Sure.
what comes out as a waste product.
So I've given many stool samples to my doctors,
Yeah.
but none of it. They've been testing for not this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's new, and again, there's people in a lab somewhere right now working on this problem, but scientists working on this problem right now. But again, this is all new stuff. We're just now learning about the microbiome of the gut, the makeup of the gut, and how that affects not just digestive issues, but a focus of mind, how it affects brain issues.
Mm-hmm.
Diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia is literally influenced by the inflammation of your gut.
The gut,
That's
gut's
crazy, right?
so underrated.
That's fucking crazy to say that and be like, wait a second, my gut is talking to my brain and they're influencing each other.
And that's
Whoa.
And we talked about this before we started, like how stress affects a disease like Crohn's so bad, or even cancers, even because you hear about these stories about people have cancer, and I always heard about like the Kill Bill story. I don't know if you heard like a lady who had cancer, who like was like worshiping these Kill Bill dolls, and that was like the way she coped. I don't know why I heard that when I was like 8, and it stuck with me. I've never seen the Kill Bill movies yet, but point is like
Shout out to Uma Thurman.
right. No, yes, right.
He's like 6'4".
Total
That's
badass. Two shakes of a lame's tail. What? Pulp Fiction reference. You'll laugh later. No, so it's like, can you attest to how much the mind can affect the gut versus how much the gut can affect the mind? Does it work in tandem? Does it work both ways? Because I've noticed stresses that have been cut out of my life in the more recent times where and I feel healthier, and the pictures don't lie, so when I feel less stress, anybody who feels less stress feels better, but how can you correlate how that works vice versa and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, when you talk about stress, which is something I researched and actually studied in a lab for about 3.5 years, I studied stress, but I looked at...
Sounds stressful.
No argument there. But I particularly looked at stress and its effect on learning and memory, which was basically how stress affects the brain in a specific region of the brain. But what I learned by doing that was that stress and the entire stress response affects the immune system, right? So those are linked, and we know that. We say that if you stress out a lot, what's going to happen? You're going to get sick easier, right? Mm-hmm. If you're stressed all the time, you're way more likely to get sick. That's because when we release stress, what is stress? Well, stress is a hormonal response, right? We activate our sympathetic nervous system, and we release stress hormones. It's hormones. It's literally chemical signals. Well, stress also reduces the inflammatory response in your body. So when you stress out, you actually knock down the inflammation, and this makes sense because what do people who have joint issues, what do they get injected into their knees? Right? They get cortisone injections. Cortisol, in humans is a stress hormone. It's the number one stress hormone. So they literally shoot a stress hormone into the knee joint, and that reduces the inflammatory response. While that's a Band-Aid and doesn't fix the problem, it reduces the pain because inflammation leads to pain.
So, am I understanding correctly that, because if I'm hearing that correctly, it's stress can take away inflammation?
So it's a fine line. So while stress will attenuate or knock down the immune response, you don't want to do that too much because, again, we need inflammation. It is going to be a product of tissue repair. So if we're knocking down the immune response too much, well, things are going to go awry, right? These things are all working on feedback loops, meaning if I turn this on over here, I got to turn this off, right? So if you're turning stress hormones on, you're turning immune response off, and that's going to turn off 12 other things.
So in layman terms, it's like, is that why light exercise is good, because you're putting stress on the body?
Exactly, but it's short-term stress, right?
Okay.
It's not inflammation in the sense of let me rip apart every system of my body. It's
so when you're sick and you're feeling gloomy and woe is me, and then you have maybe relationship issues, or you have kids, or work's going bad, and then everything's piling on at once, and then that's when everything goes haywire.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, psychological stress and physical stress on your body, it's no different. Yeah. Your body doesn't know the difference between, if you're psychologically, stressing out about whatever it is, right? We're worrying or we're anxious about something, which again, stress and anxiety, all the anxiety disorders fall under the same umbrella of this response. And when we're overstressing or overthinking, well, yeah, that's going to affect all these other things, usually in a negative way. Now, if you stress your body short term, like exercise, that's extremely beneficial, right? So, stress is a very interesting topic, and it's not straightforward. Too much of it is very bad. Too little of it, makes us, eat a bag of potato chips and not do anything, right?
So basically, going off of that, which is another Alone story, right? So. Anybody that loves the Alone series, tune out for the next 30 seconds. But so one of the girls that was on, I don't know, season 3 or something like that, she had MS, which we all know MS is an awful autoimmune disorder, disease, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still figuring that.
Yeah,
I use them both.
So she's got MS, and the first season that she was on, things were going right. And she was just happy to be out there. She wasn't out there for the money, because like I said, it's like $500,000 to $1 million for the winner. So she was on for season 2 or something like that, and she was killing it, absolutely killing it. And then she took herself out for no like reason for MS, but she took herself out because she got her values worth, right? So then she came back. They had like a rebuttal for a lot of people that have already been on it and failed. And she came back, and she wasn't doing great. She couldn't find a constant food source. It was struggle after struggle after struggle. And then she started seeing big inflammation or MS flare-ups, and she couldn't move her legs, which is a big sign of MS. And she wasn't able to walk. She had to call the people and say, hey, you have to carry me out of here because I can't move my legs. Because her MS was flaring up, and that's something that she didn't see on the first season because she wasn't. I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know how it all works, but the first season, watching it from sitting on my damn couch, she seemed to, everything was going right for her. It was great. When it started going wrong and she was stressing out more, her MS flare-ups were going crazy, and she had to pull out very early.
I was going to say MS is related to inflammation as well. Yeah. It's actually multiple sclerosis, so an interesting disease that causes damage of certain parts of the cell. So, but again, mediated by inflammation. So that makes sense, right? We stress out, we increase in the inflammatory response.
Very interesting.
So, in my last episode, I mentioned denial, and so it's going on year 13 and some change of Crohn's. The first, like I mentioned, let's just call it the first 7 years, where I just didn't really acknowledge it, didn't really care, didn't give it the time of day, and other than me just shitting a lot and having belly pain here and there, which I grew to be normal, do you think that comes from the lack of stress that I allowed to come into my body? Or do you think that because I didn't give it the time of day, that it didn't affect me greater than it could have been? And then to piggyback off of that, God, I can't believe I said that word. When it became a little more prevalent is when I started thinking about it more when I felt like it started affecting me more, and I started having more surgeries, and I started taking more pills, and I was going to the doctor more. So do you think that that has any truth or correlation? Or was that just my life panning out and being young and immature and...
Yes, and again, that's a hard question to ask because we have all the things that you are going through in your life, right? And again, to our bodies, when you're psychologically stressing out about something, your body's going to respond the same way as if you're in a physical fight, right? A lot of times when, we release those adrenaline hormones or those things that increase our heart rate and those type of things. So stress is a very key player in a lot of diseases. We're just starting to kind of scratch the surface and learn so much about it. But I think that hard question to answer. I would say that whatever you're doing, exercise, diet wise, whatever you're going through psychologically, that is definitely going to affect our body as a whole, and could definitely overall have an impact on any disease, not even just Crohn's, but the one that definitely is related to inflammation. I would say that those are definitely related in some way.
That's interesting because when I was first diagnosed and when I was in the denial stage, I was very active. I was still in basketball. I was still practicing. I still had games. I was young and I was athletic still. And then I would say when I stopped doing stuff willingly, I'd still play pickup or I'd still, ride a bike here and there. But it definitely wasn't a fluid and consistent exercise. So... looking back now, it makes a lot of sense. So, I hear what you're saying, unfortunately.
So one thing I want to kind of pinpoint on is we talked about diet. We got on a whole tangent, but you had mentioned blueberries, right? Going back to blueberries, what was the pill that you were prescribed for your colon that did not work?
There's been a number of them.
The one that you were talking about earlier. That sent you to the ER?
So that was Remicade, which was in a drip infusion.
Right. So that was strictly for your colon though, right?
Will you Google that for me, see what type of medicine that is?
So it's not, it does the whole, I think we'll figure it out right now. It would have specialized for my colon.
Okay. Gotcha. So the only thing that I'm curious about is so blueberries, right? If you had your diet decent, other than chicken and pizza, if you had some blueberries thrown in there or something like that, could that have had a positive effect on your colon health? Because I know, again, going back to when I used to work at the vitamin shop, we had a doctor that came in there and he was a homeopathic doctor. He would not prescribe anything but homeopathic remedies. And when I said resveratrol earlier, that's in some of the red wines, that was a big heart remedy that he would say, oh, I want you guys to take resveratrol for this.
And that's probably a good cholesterol, I imagine.
Probably,
or a good fat.
Probably.
It ends in all.
Yeah, so. You know more than me on that. But he was big. I mean, he was in the vitamin shop all the time getting homeopathic remedies for what a normal doctor would prescribe a medication for.
Yep.
And in his instance, he was very allergic to it. So could he have went the homeopathic route, or can he still go the homeopathic route and take that supplement, that homeopathic supplement, instead of that prescription that he's very highly allergic to, and maybe that helps out more.
And I'm interested in what this is because I looked at some therapeutics and things like that before coming here just to make sure I'm well versed on these things, and essentially the way they target Crohn's, if it's not surgical, which is, again, they're doing surgery, that's crazy because that's not going to fix the problem, right? Surgery is not going to remove your immune system from your body, so that's crazy. Number one, I think that's kind of an outdated, kind of antiquated idea. Let's just take out the section that's really inflamed.
Right.
That sounds crazy to me.
As if it's not going to go somewhere else.
Exactly. So, looking at the medications and the therapeutics, some of them targeted very specific parts and mechanisms in the cell, and that's why I'm interested, because I wanted to talk about one of those essentially some of those medicines can prevent your immune system from getting to the area. Because if your immune system going to the area and that's inflammation, some of these medications can actually block your immune system from entering the region, which will prevent inflammation.
So that's interesting you say that, because TNF, does that sound...
Tumor necrosis factor.
So
is
that's
TNF.
That's the first one I've ever heard. So
that is a cytokine. That is a pro-inflammatory molecule.
So how does Remicade work? It says Remicade blocks a protein in your immune system called TNF alpha. Okay, good. TNF alpha can cause inflammation.
It's a pro-inflammatory cytokine.
And it says this is off of Remicade.com, by the way. So I would hope that this source is semi-legit. It says, what is Remicade? Remicade is a prescription medication to treat Crohn's disease, pediatric Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, pediatric ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. It starts with a P. Psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, plaque psoriasis.
Right, there we go. And anything that ends in isis like that means inflammation, or itis, that means inflammation.
Okay, so like ology, like the study of.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Hey, I'm not super dumb. So for
That's
Crohn's,
a suffix right there.
In the Crohn's disease, little excerpt that says, can reduce signs and symptoms and induce and maintain remission in adult patients with moderately to severe active Crohn's disease who haven't responded well to other therapies.
See, that's interesting to me because TNF, the main... So, back to inflammation. What is inflammation? Well, that means that you're going to release you're going to dump out the bag of inflammatory molecules.
Pun intended. Sorry.
Those molecules are called cytokines. Cytokines can be pro-inflammatory, which means they cause inflammation, or they can be anti-inflammatory. And one of the pro-inflammatory cytokines is TNF, specifically TNF alpha. TNF alpha is also upregulated in cancer and all types of other diseases. So the fact that they're just targeting one pro-inflammatory cytokine, that doesn't give me a lot of... Looking at the research, again, I've been looking at the research and what do we target? That's one of many pro-inflammatory cytokines. So is Crohn's disease caused by TNF? No, right? So, again, maybe, but there's going to be some other factors coming into play. So a medicine that targets only that, I don't know about that, right? And that could have been why you may have had adverse effects. It didn't work for you. Maybe one of those other things is causing your inflammation.
Crazy adverse effects. I thought I was going to die. My lungs were my vision was I literally saw the light. I was in the freaking room and I felt horrible because there's cancer patients with ports, and here I am with just a little butt problem getting this, in my opinion, a lethal injection, because this is my second, actually it was my third go around, because I did it when I was 17 in the children's hospital. I started getting some chest pain, so they stopped it. So literally 10 years later, I told the doctor, hey, let's try it again. I'm 10 years older. Maybe this has changed. Maybe my body has changed. We tried it again, and I did it, and there was no adverse effects first round. And I felt so good. And I was like, yo, I can see why people take this. I see the success stories now. It makes sense. And then I want to say it was a week later where I had the same. I had the adverse effects where I was having it was worse than a panic attack. My lungs were collapsing and my vision went, and I went to the hospital, and they chalked it up to just a delayed reaction. So doctor was like, hey, let's try it again, but this time we'll pump you up with a bunch of allergy medicines and a bunch of steroids and all this stuff to calms it down.
All those things are going to knock down the immune response, right?
So I started, and then I was in the chair, and we're probably, the drip starts, and probably I want to say 20, and it's like a 2.5 hour injection or infusion. Probably 25 minutes into it, it's a wrap. Done for. So I ended up getting squatted out. Like, they brought in a stretcher. Of course, I feel like dog shit because there's literally cancer patients just watching this freaking Crohn's patient getting carted out on a stretcher, going to another hospital. And I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like, I thought we were doing stuff to prevent this. And just to carry on to that conversation, the new medicine that I'm going to be starting is called Entyvio, which is, like, my understanding, like the exact opposite of that, where it's not a TNF blocker, and it's completely something else. And the caveat to that is my doctor gave me, like, it's like a 30% chance of helping my particular issue. So I'm gonna check out this Entyvio website here. Oh, that's a lot of reading. A lot of side effects.
A lot of side effects,
right? And that's
Always
the whole thing with, like, that's I hate big pharma because that's been my story for the last 13 years. I take a medicine that has to be taken with another medicine, which causes a side effect, which means I need to take another medicine.
So do some blueberry smoothies with a bunch of other stuff mixed into it, so you don't taste the blueberries, and see if it works.
So here's my thing now. If let's just say all of a sudden I like blueberries today and I want to eat blueberries. Great. But are those nutrients actually going to help my colon? Because it's not reaching my colon. It's being diverted.
That's true.
And that's where I'm like, do I just eat whatever I want? I have been for the last 6 months or something.
But you did say you are very clear the last colonoscopy. You're great.
It
so
looks
maybe
like a normal
when
colon
you get it reversed, maybe that's something you'd look into, is maybe deviate from the pizza and chicken diet just a tad bit with a blueberry smoothie every morning, or something different.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad Jordan is here.
I think number
Same
one,
here.
like anyone, I've always been worried about Crohn's because it runs in my family. I've never been tested, but I've had definitely gut flare-ups when I've eaten some bad stuff and felt really terrible, right? So I think the number one thing for anyone is to just get your gut tested and see what the makeup of your gut is and see how it's going to respond to certain things. Because, how could a doctor even prescribe a therapeutic if they don't know the makeup of your own gut? And you're right. You asked me the question about, why are GI doctors not doing this? I think it's relatively new, and it's a different approach to it.
Because on paper it seems like, hey, let me take this test.
Yep.
Let's find out what triggers it. Let's stay away from those triggers.
Yep.
Obviously, for someone like me, that's not going to be so simple. So,
but maybe it's a trigger that's something like ridiculous, right? And you don't know, and it could be like dairy or something like that.
So that was gonna be. I was gonna bring that up because it's like a constant meme, or it's like one of these controversial. Milk is now a controversial topic.
Like everything,
right? Everything's. I grew up liking milk. Okay, I like milk with my cookies. I like having milk with my brownies. And I feel like the same people that are like, milk is bad, will still drink a milkshake.
Yeah. Right?
So, do you have any insight on milk or dairy for that matter?
Yeah.
I've had some therapists come out for my son, and they've mentioned food products and dyes, and food dyes of that, and dairy, and they're talking about complications of that. So, what do you have to say about dairy and or milk?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, let me mention, I haven't drank milk in, probably 7 years as far as like regularly. I don't have dairy like in my house. I eat cheese
eggs?
Periodically.
No eggs?
I eat eggs.
Are eggs considered dairy? Is that a
considered animal product? I would assume it's dairy. But
dairy would be like
I think it's more of an animal
like
product.
Milk, cheese, lactose.
Okay.
Based things.
Okay. Ice cream.
Ice cream, yeah. So when it comes to like raw milk, I don't drink milk. Like cow milk, I just don't have it in the house. I haven't for a while. It doesn't. And to speak on that, most people genetically, the genetically dominant trait is lactose intolerance. So
Which
most people in the world literally are lactose intolerant.
I mean, that's what they told me that when I was 16. When I got diagnosed, they were like, "Hey, you're also, by the way, you're lactose intolerant."
Have you ever tried almond milk?
Yeah,
almond milk's phenomenal in my opinion.
I've been drinking almond milk.
Dude, I love almond milk.
You know, after a while, you just don't crave milk anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, to answer your question, a lot of it is kind of psychological and how we're kind of conditioned, right? We're growing up eating milk,
and
eating cereal, drinking milk, and
promotions.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I remember seeing
Propaganda.
that in my high school, right? The milk mustache,
right?
And, so I think a lot of it's psychological. We think we need milk to build strong bones, but the what is the nutrient content of milk? Well, it's basically nothing. Milk is a dead nutrient. The only thing you're getting from milk is basically calcium and some other stuff. You can get calcium from spinach.
So what you're saying is milk does not build strong bones.
Not necessarily.
Calcium.
No,
because that's what we're all talking
about.
Calcium builds strong bones, right? But so
how much calcium is in a glass of milk?
Milligram wise, I don't know, right? But look it up.
Enough to make an effect.
But if you read the almond milk labels, it says it has more calcium than regular cow milk.
So again, as long as you're getting calcium from somewhere, you're fine. Yeah. But again, what is milk nutrient wise? Well, nothing other than basically minerals like calcium, because all milk that you buy in a store has been heated up in a giant vat. And they call that homogenized, which means they heated it and they destroyed all the living stuff in there, good and bad. So you don't have any enzymes in milk. You don't have any living things in milk. It's just calcium.
So it's a dyed liquid substance that we're all just...
Well, not dyed. It's, naturally that color, I think. But the lactose is the main thing in it. Lactose is a sugar.
Well, I saw maybe it was a stupid TikTok, but somebody said that because of blood and pus.
I heard it comes out a different color than what it is in the jug. I've heard that, but it's still white.
I also find it interesting that
it's
the same consistent color every single time.
Yeah. Well, and they pour it in a big vat, they heat it up, and when you heat something, you change its properties, right? When you cook something in a pan, an egg, for example, the egg comes out clear liquid. That clear liquid turns into a white protein. It's still a protein at both stages, but it's living when it's the clear liquid. When you heat it, it's changed. It's a dead
eggs. Can you tell me why there's white eggs and brown eggs?
Different chickens. Well, the white eggs, I think they actually do die, but all eggs should come out kind of brown, yellow, greenish colored.
Every fresh egg that I've ever seen is brown or something.
If you get special chickens, they're like yellow and green colored.
Yeah.
Green eggs and ham. Green eggs are a real thing.
Okay, so where does the white egg come from? Because
I don't know if they bleach it or what they do. They do some sketchy stuff to the eggs, but they're not naturally like that.
Because I know, like, when I was in Australia, I was a chef, which I had no business being a chef, but they didn't have white eggs there. There wasn't an option.
I don't think that they exist naturally, to be honest.
And then when I come home and I cook eggs for my son, or I'm buying eggs for like brownies or lemon bars or something, which I'm usually buying for my son to cook for breakfast because he has a better palate than I do, which I'll shout to myself, right? So, and I mean 9 times out of 10 I'll buy the brown eggs that are egg cage free and things like that, and they're obviously more expensive, but that makes me tickle my chin hairs that there's a choice, and but when I was in Australia there really wasn't a choice.
Yeah. Well, America's the super mecca of capitalism, right? So if we can make money off of it, we're going to try to do that to some degree. So I think a lot of that has to do with a lot of what they call the Western diet. And even when you take a nutrition class in any university, they'll teach you, well, why is most of America obese? Well, it's because of a few different things, one of them being quality and availability of food. Our food quality here is extremely poor, right? You use a McDonald's on every corner. That's horrible. Like, if people don't know by now that that's not, the fountain of youth, You go to Wendy's, go to McDonald's.
Which-
we know that, but
I will say.
it's so available. It makes it seem like it's normal, right?
Right.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, and when you travel overseas, that's what you see. And, I mean, when I was 13 and I would travel, I looked for the Golden Arches, I looked for a KFC, I looked for a Burger King.
Yeah.
That's what my very childish and malnutrition self, I looked for comfortability. I looked for what I was used to.
Yeah.
But I want to note that my 3-year-old does not eat McDonald's chicken nuggets. I do. I'm proud of that, and they're even better in the air fryer. But he won't eat them. He won't touch them.
Good for
And
him.
Good.
Right.
Right.
He does have a quite a good palate.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I should have brought those.
So when I was in
tomatoes.
Croatia with Mario, shout out Mario, but when I was in Croatia, the staple of their diets, hell, half of them was vegetables.
Yeah.
They paprika, peppers, and yamnica.
Do you know what veggies are? Like back to macromolecules. Vegetables are mostly carbohydrates.
Yeah. So I mean
Sugars.
yamnica is a water, right?
Vegetables are carbs.
So I always see the memes, we're not cooking them right, or we don't know how to cook.
I think a vegetable is a vegetable, to be honest. I mean, maybe you could warm it to where. I mean, I think heat kills everything, right?
Exactly,
To an
yeah.
extent.
Can you talk to me about pumpkins? Because also in Australia, pumpkin was an extremely popular topping for a pizza. Yeah, so when I went to Australia, it was like a freaking culture shock. And it's so funny because I went there to be a bartender and like a barista type of thing, which I didn't know how to barista either, but it's one of those things where it's like, what's it, Mike McCarthy lied on his resume about watching the Cowboy. Sorry, Corey. But, I mean, I told them what I was good at, and they saw my resume, and then when I get there, they had to, like, interview me to place me. And the GM was like, hey, so do you have any experience in the kitchen other than pizza? And I was like, no. None.
I
He was
bread
like,
shit.
okay, we'll put you in the kitchen. And like it's like a 4-star resort. Like
shit.
so it's like I mean I don't know if it was a 4-star restaurant. I mean I don't know. I mean but there was like a head chef and a sous chef, and like they were like the real deal. Like they went to culinary school. Like it was like the real deal, and I'm just some kitchen aide that's like aiding them and helping them and stuff. But I would do the pizzas. Pizza was like Sundays were like pizza night, and like pumpkin. I mean, we all have like our jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, right? And I know that there's like squash that kind of looks like pumpkin, and there's like other. I know that
Pumpkin
there was.
pie.
I knew pumpkin spice. I knew that there was like
That's all I know.
variant of pumpkins, but like I didn't know that. I mean, I know people eat pumpkin seeds and pumpkin pie, but I did not. I did not know that people like ate pumpkin as a source of food, and like I would cube it up. I'd peel them and I would chop it up and I would cube it up.
Really?
And I mean, not only was it a pizza topping, but it would be like, I don't know, there'd be like a side of pumpkin, like you'd have like a side of potatoes, it'd be like a side of pumpkin, and like, they would mix it in others. I mean, it was bizarre to me.
They also eat kangaroo, I think.
Yes, they
That's
do.
like us eating deer, right? But no, I think
Facts.
it's also weird because I don't want to compare a dog to us, but like if a dog is having stomach issues, they recommend pumpkin puree.
You're right.
Is a big thing that they recommend for dogs to have for an upset stomach is pumpkin puree. So I don't know if that's
You're actually right.
Yeah.
You just like light bulb came
Yeah.
on.
So if that
You just gave them a whole new research and a whole new
right.
vegetable to grow now, damn it.
I have 4 dogs, so I've heard that, right? But I never clicked with digestive health.
Yeah, I mean the dog's digestive system is a lot stronger than ours, right? Because they can eat whatever the fuck they want,
Yeah.
and raw meats and this, that,
Break
and next.
bones
But
down.
right, yeah. But I'm just curious if that has some sort of same effect as
Interesting.
it helps their digestive system. So maybe it helps humans. I have no idea.
And
I've never heard of it either.
What we're just talking about, like the whole basically the opposite of milk. Would this be like an understated and advertised thing because it would promote health and it would promote a healthier...
I think it's just an under...
In the U.S.? No way.
I think it's just an under researched topic. Maybe. I'm not a doctor. I don't know shit. But
Jordan, we're going to have you on again, and we're going to need you to do some testing and growing of some pumpkins.
I got to look into pumpkins. You're right.
Interesting. It was weird. We would salt them up and we'd put, whatever, but we would, steam it or put it in a convection oven or something like that.
If they're not dead, then there's got to be some
pumpkin?
Some good effect to it.
What's
doing this?
What's in the pumpkin?
That's what
what's in the blue?
Right?
That should be a new slide.
But how can I
what's in this?
How can I write a book about this though and make it not a scientific article? Right? I gotta take that away a little bit and kind of bridge that gap, and that's really what I want to do. So great questions. Giving me something to think about when I go to bed tonight.
So speaking of your book, have you started writing it? Have you just been getting footnotes together?
Really, I have not started. I've been trying to sort of organize and kind of contemplate how am I going to, express this message and again in a way that everyone can read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've even considered writing kind of two parts. The first half is basic and everyone can grab it, easy read. The second part's like a scientific journal. I don't know how to do it yet, but I think it's definitely an interesting topic. I think you can take it a lot of different ways. And before I get concrete on it and say, okay, I have this, I have a draft, I have to learn more and I have to continue doing research. And that's part of what I'm doing now. I think I have to finish the design project that I'm doing. When I finish that, then I'll have kind of a clear boundary on where to go.
Do you plan on maybe putting that towards like a doctorate thesis, or you think you're done at the master's level? I know school is school, right?
Yeah, and I've contemplated this a million times. Not to sound, bougie, if you will, but I did decline a full ride scholarship for a PhD.
Really?
But it was in cognitive neuroscience, so basically. Advanced psychology, right? So it's not cellular, it's not very physiological, which any physiologist is going to be looking at. Okay, this cell's talking to this and this, activating this and this and this, and on the best day, a scientist is going to discover some mechanism that you can make a drug out of to target that mechanism, right? That's what therapeutic drugs are.
Yeah.
That's what scientists do, and a lot of people don't realize this. I didn't realize this until I was educated on it from PhDs, saying, okay, well, on my best day, I'm going to go and find this is exactly how this works, and I can prove it over and over again. Now I can target a drug to act there. And if I can do that, now I patent that drug, and I make a lot of money off of it as a scientist, right? You sell it to a pharmaceutical company. And that's basically how research and pharmaceuticals work in our country. And it's linked hand in hand. And that's part of why I didn't want to do a PhD is because if you want to go do scientific research, it's no secret that you have to have money, right? You can't just go and do, these Wild West experiments anymore. Everything now requires a $1 million machine or something. So if you don't have money, you can't do it. And where do you get the money from? You have to write the grants. And, if you're going to write a scientific grant and request money, it's government agencies giving you the money. And if you're not doing something or designing something in a way that they want you to do the research, they're not going to fund you. Right, so I think that, the pharmaceutical companies have a huge lean on that. They can say, well, we want people to go and look at this so we can make money off of it. So if a scientist is not doing that, they're just not going to get money. Their lab's going to be defunded. So that's a huge issue. And it's not like that everywhere, but it's like that here. And again, if you want to be a scientist and you want to dedicate your life to science, that's what you have to face. You have to jump through those hoops. And that's tough. That's tough. And, morally, ethically, you could dedicate your whole life to something, but you're going to be working within the constructs of what someone else wants you to do. So that's a huge point of research.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
it's great that you have a conscious thought of that, though.
Well, I thought about this as I'm killing animals, right, on under a fume hood. And dissecting them and taking their brains out of their skulls, which may seem kind of brutal, but this is how basically all research is done, and how any drug that someone may take, this is how we do it, and again, I don't like that part of it, is why I'm getting, kind of out of it. I don't like sacrificing animals, and doing this, and I think some of my vegan friends will be happy about this, but, it does weigh on you, right? You're like, I just killed 30 animals. Well, what is this gonna, they're rats, right? But they're really intelligent rats, right? They're not like, bottom of the barrel rats. They're a little bit smarter, and it makes you think. So,
okay, so that's interesting.
That's science.
And you do that like in a lab?
I did for the last 3 years. Yeah, it was part of my master thesis, basically studying stress. We use a special type of rat as the animal model, because again,
is that on campus at school, or is there some Dexter's laboratory that you're going to? I mean,
no, but it was in the basement of one of the buildings at the university. There is no windows, right? You can't let the PETA people into the research labs. They did that before, right?
Sure.
There's a big story where they at Wright State where they let all the animals out one time. So you have to go through like 8 layers of security to even get into the animal lab. So it's pretty intense, but if we want to know more about ourselves, we have to study other animals, because they are the research design. And what most people don't realize is that a rat has pretty much all the same brain structures as we do. That's why we use rats, right?
That's crazy.
Their brains, the only part of our brains that are different is the cortex, the developed big part, outer portion of our brain that gives us the ability to speak and to do logic and reasoning and destroy the planet and all the stuff that humans do. We have that developed cortex. But when it comes down to the stuff deeper in the brain, they're the same. They're the same across all mammals, right?
That's why.
Evolution, baby.
We have 12 nerves, 12 cranial nerves that control all of the sensations, motor and sensory function in our head, face, neck, and whole chest region. There's 12 nerves. A rat has the exact same 12 nerves. Every mammal has the same 12 nerves. They just may slightly vary in their size, and things like that. So we use animals because of this reason. We don't realize that we're not that much different, right? We developed from these things. So it's a very interesting concept to think about. Like, wow, I'm studying this rat because it's kind of like me.
Right. So, you always heard the term lab rats and things like that, but I just thought that was like a disposable animal. I didn't realize that it had so much substance and had so much, I guess, to offer us. Yeah. That's interesting.
Rats and mice, are used a lot, tons in research, and it's interesting. But that's the model we have, and we have to extrapolate that, of course, to humans and say, okay, well, we got to do human studies if we want to pass this, drug through the clinical studies. Yeah. But it all started on rats or or whatever. So I don't like that part of it. I don't like that part of the research. It's not something I would want to do daily.
Is there an alternative?
Really, no.
Sure.
How would you study something unless you're studying a clone of a human or something, right? And that's unethical in its own. So what other method do we have? And again, for all my vegan friends listening, this is a conversation I'd love to have with you. A lot of people who do fall on that vegan scale will claim veganism because of the moral grounds. But how do you justify that morally when we support all these other things that we need? So that's my biggest thing, and my buddy Devin comes to mind. And Devin, if you're listening to this, we got to get you on here and talk to you at some point, because I know you're a big vegan advocate. But I'd love to pick your brain on this. That's all. And I always argue with the vegans, but in a educational way, not like I hate you. Okay?
Sure.
Let's learn from each other.
Sure.
So I know we've kind of diverted a little bit, quite a bit, a lot of it. But I mean,
from pumpkins to rats.
Right. This all kind of came about with us talking about your grandma, and what she was going through, and then how the diet. I mean, I think this whole podcast was about the diet. So how the diet? So tell a little bit. I guess some final remarks about how that worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. To come back to the reason why we're all here, right? My grandma Wanda Young, rest in peace. She did pass away January 2020, not from Crohn's, from pancreatic cancer, which is also a digestive disorder as well as hormonal. But everything that I do is inspired kind of from her and from what I learned from her and my great grandfather, her dad. They always had a garden when I was little. You don't appreciate that stuff when you're a kid. She would always tell me, this is horseradish, right? This is a cherry tree, and whatever when you're a kid. But when she was staying with me, how this all started was with 3 plants. I bought 2 pepper plants and a tomato plant from Lowe's or something crazy, and I put it in this little side section, and my buddy came over and he goes, "Wow," he said, "this is a Charlie Brown garden." Right, like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, right? It's got like 1 ornament on it. And ever since that, I said, you know what? I'm going to take this to the next level.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And the only reason I started with those 3 plants is because my grandmother was living with me, right? I mentioned that, and she would sit out back in the backyard all day long. That's what she would do. She would sit out there all day. So I figured I would give her something beneficial to look at and to appreciate. And she always had a garden, so.
Makes sense.
So I tried to do that for her, and 3 plants led to, 20. I don't even know how many plants I have now, but, all of that relates back to diet, nutrition, and taking care of our bodies. And, we only get one. So my whole goal was I'm going to cook for her. I'm going to make it, as nutrient rich as possible. And then taking her to her doctor's appointments. We found out her Crohn's was in remission, from her doctor. She said, "Oh, her Crohn's is in remission," which she was going there for general checkups and all types of other reasons. But we found out in that process, well, she's not showing any signs of Crohn's anymore. And that was only with a short time of, changing diet and just eating fresh food. It seems so crazy, and I want to go back to something I mentioned earlier, which I didn't elaborate on, which was that documentary. The docu-series with, I don't remember the name, but it's with Zac Efron and other guy.
I started watching that.
What is the name of that? But
Google
it.
Yeah, I started watching that. And I just...
Yeah, and those guys really inspired me. And Zac Efron, you think Glee and whatever. So I watched it kind of
Down to Earth.
Down to Earth, that's it. So I watched it kind of with a grain of salt, like, oh, okay, what am I going to learn from this?
Sure.
But in one episode, they go to Italy, and they're talking to the people in Italy, and Italy and Japan have the most centurions in the whole world, which are people who live over 100, and their diets are high-carb diets. They're not high protein, they're not high fats, they are high-carb diets. And it comes back to what we were talking about originally of, we need carbohydrates. We need to burn carbs as our fuel source. So we shouldn't be cutting carbs out. We should just be saying, okay, where can I get healthy, good carbs that my body can actually digest?
So pizza's good.
As long as you're getting a good wheat source, right? If you get good wheat, good flour, that can contribute to a good pizza.
Sure.
Right? But if we're getting wheat that's been sprayed with all types of chemicals and then we grind in the flour, well, there's going to be some trace residue of those chemicals, and that interestingly enough has shown a lot of negative effects in the digestive system, not just with the pesticides but plastic water bottles, right? There's a huge area of research right now that's focusing on plastic and its effect on the gut microbiome, right? So drinking out of plastics, plastics don't degrade, they just break into smaller and smaller plastics.
Sure.
So if we're drinking that stuff, it's going to end up in our gut, and that can affect things negatively as well. So back to my grandma, I wasn't doing anything special or specific. I was just trying to cook fresh food, fresh veggies, high quality meats. I even at some point was getting meat from a local market that would only sell grass-fed meat. It was local. I would talk to the farmers who butchered the cow. And that's a huge part of what's wrong with America and our whole diet information kind of, it's everything is where's the stuff coming from, and how do I do I understand this? How far from the source is it that I'm actually getting this stuff, right? If I can get stuff from you, I know you, right? My supply chain is local, and it reminds me of that meme that I see that says, Grandma survived the Great Depression because her supply chain was local. And it's a picture of an old woman just standing in her field with all of her crops, right?
Awesome.
Her supply chain was herself, right? So the further we get away from the supply chain, the more room for error, right?
Sure.
If I don't know who's supplying the product, well, that person has no reason to make that product quality.
Sure. Makes sense.
So that's a big part of it, That's a big part of it. Stay local. Know who you're getting food from. And one of those people can be me.
Yeah, I was just going to say. So you're local, and you have a produce company. And if one is local listening to this, how could they find you? How could they buy your produce?
Yeah, and number one, Instagram. It's one of the only social medias I have. So again, at Science Gardener. I try to take all the scientific information I've learned in the last 10 years. I've been in school for like 10 years. So it's a struggle. It's hard for me to even believe, but I'm still learning every day, and to take that knowledge and to apply it sort of in a different field and sort of into plants, that's everything for me. And if I can share that with other people and motivate other people to be healthy, and to eat well, and that's what I'm all about. So contact me on Instagram. You can message me directly. Again, at Science Gardener. We do local produce deliveries. It is seasonal right now. It's about 6 months out of the year. We do bi-weekly produce deliveries. So basically, I do $25 a month, and every 2 weeks you get a produce bag, and that produce bag is full. It is way more than $25 worth of produce. So if you go to your
so take advantage of this now before it gets really big and he has to start portioning out his delivery.
Absolutely, which sad to say I've had to do already. But next season, we're taking on a full new client base, and again, the more people who sign up, the more motivation I have to expand. So I'm all about that. Again, if I can supply nutrient-rich veggies to people and help them, whether it be through disease or just simply I want to boost diet, I want to boost exercise, boost nutrition, that's what I want to do.
And I believe you're at a local farmers market. Is that also true?
That is, yeah. I'm also at the Greene County's Farmers Markets on Wednesdays.
Okay, and where is that at?
That is in downtown Faribault, Ohio.
Oh, okay, by the old Fifth Third Bank.
Yep, right out there in the parking lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Every 2 weeks they have food trucks in the evenings. So the first and the third Wednesday of the month they do a morning farmers market from like 10 a.m. to 2. But the second and the fourth Wednesday of every month they do evening farmers market where it's from 2 to 7. And they do food trucks in coordination with it. So it's a good environment. You can come out and meet people, talk to people. And again, my big thing is not making money or selling produce. That's not what I care about.
Sure,
if it is, it wouldn't be what I'm doing.
Sure.
Because getting this all started and getting this moving, I'm not making money, right? A couple years in, you start all that, and again. My focus is, okay, I can invest a little bit in this, but in the long term, people who sign up are investing in themselves, right?
And that's what's most important, right?
It's a lifestyle. It's a choice, and it's just living healthy. It's a lifestyle, right? Again, I grew up in a small town where Burger King and McDonald's was a treat to me. It was normal to go get a chicken sandwich from Burger King, right? And it's not like I don't eat any bad foods now. I will, but but again, you got to eat more good stuff than the bad stuff, and that's the goal.
Sure. Well, Cory, thank you for being here and being the third-party guest here with your outside input.
No problem.
Appreciate the input from your own personal experiences.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for being vulnerable and opening up about that. I hope somebody listening can gain something from that. Jordan, man, I'm so glad we made this happen. This was like our fourth reschedule.
Hey, we made it happen though.
Stuff happened. So yeah, I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful that you made it out. This was fantastic. I hope we can build upon this. I would love to have you back. We can elaborate on some of the topics. Hopefully this will go out and people will hear this, and I'll get messages. Maybe you'll get messages. Maybe Cory will get messages. And we can maybe pinpoint some topics and subtopics that, shed light on, that touched people or that hit home. I know I have a ton of more questions. I know I could go on for a couple more hours because I'm interested in smoothies and things I can make for myself, and we could have maybe a picky eater discussion other than just mentioning and brushing over what I do eat. But we'll wrap this up for episode 3. Episode 4 is scheduled a week from today. I have my high school mate coming on. We're going to talk about his personal experiences with his own personal battle with Crohn's. And maybe talk about some medications that he's tried that I've also tried. Until then, thank you to my awesome, very special, important guest tonight. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And until next time, this was The Crohn's Corner, and I am Dom D'Agostino, a.k.a. The Crohn's Father. Shout out to Jordan Young, Cory Evans. We'll see you next time.
No, but man, that's that whole stress conversation. That's very fucking interesting. That's
Dude,
very interesting.
Stress is fucking like, if you go and like, a big part of research is like being able to design experiments.
Yeah.
If you study stress, you could be funded for the next 20 years because we don't fucking know. Because again,
No clue.
if you do too much, it does this. If you do too little, it does the opposite.
Right.
And you're like,
Right.
all right, how do I design an experiment to test the fucking small differences?
Right.
It's fucking crazy. Like,
Yeah.
stress is absolutely, it affects every.
Yeah.
Stress hormones can bind to every cell in your body.
Yeah.
And most hormones can't do that.
Yeah.
Most hormones are very specific.
Yeah.
Not stress.
Yeah.
Stress is like fucking.
Yeah.